Okay, folks, let's get started. Welcome to our accelerated discovery forum. It's my great pleasure to introduce our distinguished speaker, BrianJohnson, today. Brian is engineering director of search science at eBay, and he has been with eBay since 2002 in a variety of management engineering roles, including search metrics, classification, data publishing, crowd-sourced rejectment, and browsing. Prior to eBay, Brian was with AT&T Bell Labs, Handspring, Excite.com, and his team is responsible for ensuring millions of queries entered into eBay website has very good search results. Brian got his PhD from University of Maryland. If you are a researcher in visualization, you must know tree maps. Brian is the original implementer. His papers about visualizing hierarchical and categorical data tree maps have received a lot of citations. Okay, I will give it to Brian.
Great, thank you. That's very good. Yeah. Makes me sound better than I am. Yeah. So, I've been at eBay almost 11 years now. And when I started at eBay, the homepage was static HTML, and we didn't have ranking. Everything was deterministically sorted by price or time. And there were no query rewrites. There was no data mining. Things have changed a lot over the last decade. And so I'm going to talk about, we have a whole search science applied research team now and what we work on. I'm going to first give you just a really brief overview of what eBay is. eBay is about 30,000 people now. I guess it's big compared to some companies, but it's small compared to IBM. And it's split. About 10,000 people are in eBay marketplaces, about 10,000 in PayPal, and about 10,000 in everything else. And eBay actually is globally the biggest classifieds provider. We've totally lost out to Craigslist in the US, but overseas classifieds are a pretty big deal. And we own a bunch of smaller companies in Europe and Australia and places. So there's a lot of other different pieces that eBay has done over time. And I should have asked the question first before I put the slide up, but things have changed. So now eBay for fixed price inventory, it's about 70% of the sales on the site. So it's not auctions anymore. And eBay started out as an auction site. Now it's mostly new fixed price. The overlap, there used to be, years ago when people said, who is the competitor to eBay? There wasn't a good answer. The answer was basically nobody. Today the answer is really Amazon and eBay directly overlap. Amazon's gone into third-party sales. eBay's gone into new fixed price merchandise. And Google, because most of the big sellers sell on Amazon, they sell on eBay, and they run their own websites, and they use search as the entry to their own websites, because otherwise nobody would find it, right? So either natural search or paid search. So Google is a competitor to eBay also. And Google has shopping too. They've had shopping for a long time, but it's kind of waxed and waned. Sometimes it's been good, sometimes not.
Especially if you look at buy it now on eBay, you've had for a long time, and you could just do a fixed price. But do you also just do things where not even any auction component whatsoever, it's just, here's my price?
Yes. Yep.
So that's
Yeah.
what mainly do.
Just fixed price, yeah.
Not even, no.
There's no auction component. Auctions are the minority now. Auctions are maybe 30%, maybe a little bit less actually. And it's dropping all the time. People are searching on multiple devices now more often than tablets or computers. They might be bidding, but a lot of people just want to, and you're probably all those people. You just want to buy something. You don't want to spend all week long. Maybe you spend some time researching it, and when people reach for their wallets, they become very discriminating. About what seller they're buying things from. What seller they're going to be buying from, how much they're spending. Yeah, you can. A lot of times you can save a little bit of money on auctions. sometimes you'll see the same seller selling an item, and it'll be $30 fixed price, $29 for an auction. Save $1. Most people aren't willing to wait a week to save $1. Because the market's pretty competitive, so the prices are pretty known for a lot of things. Now, for some collectibles or art or things like that, it might be a little bit different. But most of the inventory that's sold, if you're buying a laptop charger, everybody knows what it costs, or a book.
$29 auction for the auction, real auction we started.
99 cents. Yeah.
They don't even bother with credit.
No, some of them start just a fraction lower than me. We actually have a limit, so I think you have to start your auction. Well, if you can offer auctions where if nobody bids on the auction, somebody can buy it now. The auction bin item is like a mixed format. You have to start the auction, I think, 10 or 20% below what the fixed price is. But a lot of people just list fixed prices. And most things are new, by far. If you and I are selling, we're probably selling used things, but by and large, things are new. And this is kind of an interesting statistic. People have really moved. So mobile took off in eBay a couple of years ago, and it's been growing incredibly fast for a few years now, and it still is. But a lot of people do things multi-screen. So they'll look at something at home. Maybe they'll check it out at work on their break. Maybe they'll look at it on their tablet, on their mobile phone. They might, if they're bidding on a car, you'll see people, maybe they'll do the research on their desktop, but they'll do some of the bidding on their phone. They'll get an output notice, and they'll do the bidding on their phone. So people, there's a lot of multi-screen users. And this was from last year. 21% of the people were multi-screen users, and they were 44% of the GMV, or the revenue for the site. And that's because they're the big users of the site, right? They're the enthusiasts. And some people are very enthusiastic about shopping. Whenever I look at handbags, I can't believe how much they cost. So there must be a lot of enthusiastic people. And there's a lot of revenue that comes through mobile, but it's not always exclusively mobile. So some part of the transaction, people did something on their mobile device, but they may not have initiated it on mobile, or they may not have completed it on mobile. And then eBay has always been a global company. And we were launching in the early 2000s, we were launching new sites all the time. There was US, UK, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, France, Italy, Spain, Poland. And then for a few years, we kind of slowed down launching new sites. And now we've been launching more of a buying experience in like Russia and Brazil. Because the Russians aren't selling much to the rest of the world right now, but they're buying a lot. So they come to eBay.com and buy. So we've launched a Russian language version, which is doing a lot of machine translation. And that works pretty well.
So they see the same stuff as the Americans see, they just translate.
We don't show them the same stuff. So we do the data mining. So I'm in charge of search recalls. So people buy different things, right? So you're probably not going to buy a table in Russian and ship it to Russia because it's expensive, but they buy a lot of watches, things like that. So things that are small, expensive, and shippable.
But weren't a lot of these foreign openings based on purchases of companies that already had that market in a significant way? You acquired companies, I thought.
Some markets we lost out on. So we lost out to Taobao in China and pulled out.
Yeah, but I'm referring to when you opened certain foreign things.
We didn't buy a company in Russia.
No, I mean in general, I thought in Europe.
Oh, we have been partnering with people. Yeah, I mean eBay's taken our licks in acquiring companies. It's not always easy to go into a foreign market and apply the same model that you have somewhere else. We have a site. What we used to do is we have a site in the U.S. and it's globalized. It's localized to globalized. So we take the same model and we go to Poland and we apply it. And the Polish site would look just like the U.S. site, and the Chinese site used to look just like the U.S. site. But if you look at Chinese websites, they don't look like U.S. websites. U.S. websites look like Google is the extreme, but they're very Spartan. You know, it's a white page, there's some boxes, there's some text. You go to the Asian websites, and it's like you're in downtown Las Vegas or something. Stuff is blinking, the pages are huge. You know, it's like from a download standpoint, they got everything going on. It's, yeah, it's like a show. And eBay wasn't like that. So, yeah, we didn't do so well applying the same model to other cultures. So in Korea, we run a joint venture. And that, I think, is doing all right. I'm not an expert there. But yeah, that's been a better, in general, that's been a better model.
Is a lot of that stuff advertising as flashing on the screen? Is that?
Not always. Some of it's advertising, but some of it's just, the websites are busy. So, I mean, they're dense, they're packed. So there's a lot of characters on the screen. And it might be advertising, but some of it's just merchandising, or, you know, packing lots of other, I mean, there's lots of different styles for websites. Google's kind of at one extreme with, you know, a search box and a button. If you go to Amazon, they keep adding new features on the page. There's like new kinds of recommendations. Usually when they add a new one, they don't take the old ones away. The page just has another element on it. Over the years, they tend to accumulate and get more and more things. eBay suffered that sometimes too. People don't necessarily go back and simplify and clean up. You add something new. And this is the last of the, well, second to last of this overview slides. We're doing a lot of local things now. So you know, a few years ago, you would have never imagined eBay and Target having a partnership, right? It's just, eBay was a competitor to all of them. You know, the e-commerce companies were competitors to all the local companies, and the local companies wanted to kill us off. They'd like to see, you know, Amazon, eBay, and all these companies go away. And what's happened is Amazon started putting their warehouses outside of every metropolitan area. Amazon's a huge threat to all these local companies. So the local companies, a lot of them aren't very savvy in the e-commerce world, so they want to partner with somebody. And eBay never competes with our sellers. We don't. So if you're a seller on Amazon and you start doing a good business, who's got all your data? Amazon knows everything that you sell, what price it sells for, what people look at, what are the related items that they buy. They probably know what you're paying for it. They might be stocking it and shipping it for you. So if you do well, if I start selling this laptop and it's really selling well, you know, there's some data mining job at Amazon that's going to go and say, we should sell this. And then when Amazon sells it, you're toast, because they usually undercut everybody because they're big and they've got scale going behind them. So sellers get really nervous that Amazon's going to start competing with them, and they do. Anyways, we don't sell anything. So everybody is a third-party seller on the eBay platform. So we don't compete with either the local people or the other internet. So that's been a big boom for us. So now the local companies like Toys R Us used to be on Amazon, now they're on eBay. Toys R Us, Target, Argos in the UK, Best Buy. You can purchase on eBay and then pick up locally. We can have stuff shipped too. It's up to you. And what's the benefit for the local companies? Well, if somebody's looking to buy, you know, a toy, and Toys R Us shows up on eBay, there's a chance that Toys R Us might get that transaction. If a lot of people are on eBay and Toys R Us isn't there, then there's no chance.
How much commission do you charge?
It's about 10%. For some of the big sellers, it's less, but it's about 10%. It's quite a bit, I think. Amazon's even more. I just sold a pool suite for $400. I had to pay $46 in fees. I thought $46 in fees was a lot compared to Craigslist, which is free. But the thing is, I put it on Craigslist and it didn't sell. So I usually have something up for sale on eBay all the time because I work there. We're encouraged to, eat our own dog food, which is good. When I first started at eBay, I put up for sale two Sony Duo memory sticks. I listed them and then I went and searched for Sony Duo memory stick. They didn't come up. Who can guess why?
Singular.
Yeah, singular plural. I listed them as two Sony Duo memory sticks. and I searched for stick. My selling dual memory stick didn't come up. And that's the way most sites worked. Well, that's stupid. You know, some of the good search engines like Google did were better, but you know, by and large, people look pretty bad. We've done, I'll get there a little bit, but we do null and low recovery. So when you search and you get 0 result sets, we loosen the constraints and try and bring back relevant inventory. And we do a pretty good job. It's been really good the last year. We do a lot of A/B testing. But just what Walmart does, it's almost unbelievable. So you enter a bunch of terms and they do an AND query. You know, if I search for Sony dual memory stick, right, and I've got some number of terms and they're all ANDed together. When they get no items, guess what they do?
Start dropping conjunctions.
Well, that would make sense. No, they don't do that. So, well, they drop the conjunctions. They drop all of them. They change it to an OR query.
Oh my goodness.
It's unbelievable. You know, I mean, if your item's got Sony in it, it's like everything Sony comes back on the site. You know, I think they might even search for the word "and." It's just a lot of there's a lot of inventory. All of a sudden, you've gone from 0 results to you got a lot of inventory. But it's like, oh, I couldn't believe they changed it to an OR query. It's pretty. I mean, it didn't take a lot of time for somebody to engineer that solution, but it's not the best user experience on it. Yeah. So you know, years ago, you would have never seen something like this, right? You would never see an e-commerce company with a kiosk in a physical store. You know, the physical stores, they don't want you buying stuff on eBay from their store. But anyways, so things have changed. That's basically all I wanted to say is that eBay has changed and it's mostly new fixed price. We partner with lots of people now. Things are different than they used to be. And I'm going to talk a little bit about data-driven decisions. I'm going to get more into query rewrites sort of towards the end of the talk. But first you have to decide what you're going to optimize for before you do your optimization. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the metrics we take. And we do a lot of A/B testing, which is great. When I was in graduate school, I did a test for the tree maps versus looking at outlines. And I had to pay undergraduates or graduate students $20 each. And I had 20 people in each group. But now we do experiments and we routinely have 1 million or 5 million people, in each side. And so I'm not a statistician, so I always think that, if I have an experiment with 10 million people split in half, I should get statistically significant results in about 10 minutes. It doesn't work that way. You actually have to run the tests we usually run our tests 2 or 3 weeks. There's a lot of I'll talk about it in a minute. There's a lot of variability. It's not as easy to get statistically significant results. And the effect sizes we're trying to measure are usually they're a fraction of a percent. If we run an experiment that improves things by 1%, that's huge. Because if you could do that over and over 100 times, that would be awesome. But that's not so easy. So I want to tell a little bit of a story here about. So there's a whole bunch of metrics that you could have, right? Page views, time on site, click-through rates, relevance measures like normalized discount and cumulative gain, purchases per user per week. Actually, a lot of companies use Net Promoter Score. You'll see that pop up a lot of times. It's like how likely would you recommend eBay or Best Buy or some other company, Amazon, to a friend, which is just a gut check for how likely people are to recommend your company. But that's a long-term metric, so you can't do A/B tests on something like a Net Promoter Score because it changes really slowly over time. So when we started doing machine learned ranking, we were optimizing for purchases. And we sell stuff, so optimizing for purchases seems like a reasonable choice. You can optimize for clicks. Clicks happen more often than purchases do. So sometimes some people optimize for clicks because you get more. There's more of them. There's more of a signal. Purchases are a little bit rare, but we were optimizing for purchases. So we started optimizing for purchases, and we made more money. And then we rolled out another release of our ranking functions when we moved to machine learned ranking. Because before that we had kind of a hand-tuned editorial ranker, and we sold more stuff and we made more money. and we sold more, and then we rolled it out again, and we sold more stuff, and we made more money. And then at one point, we rolled out the next version of our ranker, and we sold more stuff, and we made less money. So what happened? Does anybody want to guess? It's kind of a fun question, especially for a crowd like this. So
Did
we
you sell
sold
more because
and
you
made less
reduced
money.
your margin?
It didn't change the margins. We always take 10%. Are close to it. What was that?
Some cheaper stuff.
We sold cheaper stuff. Exactly. So we were optimizing for purchases.
Number of
So
purchases.
number of purchases. So if we put accessories up, people buy them. So you might sell 2 or 3 iPod chargers for every iPod. You can sell more than 2 or 3 for every iPod. So, but basically, the first few passes, we were moving from a hand-tuned editorial ranking functions to machine learned ranking, and it was better. And we, a rising tide floats all boats. Everything got better. But when we got good at it, right, after a couple of rounds of that, we got good at it, and now the ranker was really optimizing for the metric, right, purchases versus just lifting everything up. And so we sold more stuff. So we started ranking accessories higher than products.
The funny thing is when you said purchases, my first thought was, is it new dollars or is it new revivals? I thought, oh, that's a dumb question. Surely the new dollars.
Yeah.
I think I would have asked the question.
Yeah, right. So yes, yeah, it was a little bit vague, I guess. Probably on purpose. That was it. Bought items. Yeah. Right. So then we switched to
I
revenue.
thought that could be silly enough we can provide it, but surely.
Yeah. It worked great for I don't know, 3 rounds probably. I guess then we had to switch.
On your earlier point with respect to optimizing for clicks versus purchases, isn't the difference coming because these other guys might get paid based on ad revenue based on clicks, not necessarily?
Yeah, we don't sell ads on
Yeah, I
this
know.
site,
So I'm saying that is one
other
reason.
people might, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, different sites have different metrics. If you can, the closer you can get to your real business metrics, the better. So if your quarterly results are being reported and it's money that you're talking about, you should be optimizing for money. But there are a lot more clicks than there are purchases.
True.
So, for some queries, if you don't sell very much for those queries, you might have a lot of clicks. You might have a bunch of purchases. And then revenue, there's a lot more variability because a lot of people buy things, they buy things for $1, they buy things for $10, $100, $1,000, $10,000. So the noise and the variability is high also. Purchases are kind of easy from a machine learning standpoint because they're 0 or 1. You either bought something or you didn't, so it's kind of clean. It doesn't give you the better result, but it's easier when you start. Revenue's a lot easier. So we do A/B tests. Sometimes when I'm interviewing people, I ask just really simple statistics, especially if we're doing an A/B test. I have a million sales, and I have 2 arrays with 1 million sales each. How can I tell whether one of the experiments was better than the other one? And we have, a lot of times if people don't know statistics, a lot of people don't. They'll say, oh, you can take the average. But if you sell something expensive that's $1 million in one of those groups, it bumps everything up by $1. So the average is $2 or $3. So revenue makes the experiments noisier. We have to run longer to get statistically significant results.
What's the most expensive item you sell? Do you really sell $1 million item?
We do. We sold a $35 million Lear jet. Oh, that's the record. That was quite a few years ago. It's still the record. Nobody's beat it yet. Because we sell cars, motor vehicles, and airplanes. So there are airplanes on this site. So what do you think happens when I like telling stories when I give talks? I guess it makes it more interesting to listen to. I think people perk up with that answer. But when I come to eBay and I search for airplanes, what do you think I get? You get model airplanes. Toys,
Posters about airplanes.
collectors, posters, postcards. You get all kinds of airplane stuff, but you don't get any airplanes. Well, now you do, but you didn't used to. You didn't used to get any airplanes. We had airplanes, and so what do people do? They type airplanes and they don't see any airplanes. but they want to see airplanes. So what do you think they do next?
They might EC3.
They might. Some of them do that. A lot of them actually type real airplanes, which is kind of funny. And if you know anything about search, that's not going to help at all, because the people that sell airplanes never put real in their title. People that are searching for airplanes will type real airplanes. So we have a query rewrite now. So when you search for real airplanes, we show you we show you all the inventory in the airplane category, right? We show you real airplanes, but we didn't used to.
So internally, you have a different way of classifying the models versus the real.
Yeah, well, they're different. There's a category. There's a taxonomy. So there's home and garden, motor vehicles, collectibles. There's a lot of different categories. So it happens enough that there's a behavioral signal that real airplanes should be showing things from the airplanes category. But people get sidetracked too. They click on. So when you type in airplanes, when you type in airplanes, in the left nav, you see the counts for the items in different categories. And the main category is collectibles, like postcards. And underneath there's a subcategory called travel and transportation, I think. So people see that and they think, oh, well, the real airplanes are in transportation. And those are actually just the transportation postcards. But enough people click there that it looks like, oh, that's a good category. There's a lot of demand for it. There's a lot of click demand for items in that category, but there's not a lot of purchases. Yeah. Anyways, you had a question?
Yeah, you mentioned that you have to change the query itself, right, to handle real.
Yeah.
Do you have an association between the queries and what people end up purchasing, so you can do that
Yes.
automatically?
Yeah. So what we do is, basically, if you look at a session, we'll take success events in the session, and then we'll decay them back across the session. So if there are a lot of queries, what you're trying to do is somebody entered a query, you're trying to hop them closer to a success event, a purchase. But people don't always purchase, so a purchase might be, we might score a purchase as 10, and a bid is 5, and a watch or ask the seller a question is a 1, and a click is a half point, right? And then we decay them back over the session. So the query right before you purchase gets most of the way, and then we'll exponentially decay it back in the session. Yeah, so we usually use a mixture of purchases and clicks. In eBay, everybody walks around all the time. I think every company's got that. People on eBay talk about BBOWA all the time. Bids, offer, watch, and ask a seller a question. And they all get a different weight. So anyways, we try to optimize for revenue. And we do a lot of A/B testing with. Usually we'll do we'll have a couple of paired controls, and then we'll have maybe 2 treatments in most of the tests. And there's probably about 30 tests running on the site at any one time in eBay. It's not a huge number. Some companies run quite a few more than that. It depends on how you run them. If you carve out independent spectrum, or if you run all your tests orthogonally on top of each other. If you run them all across each other, they're a little noisier.
So when you're planning these tests, do you say, well, we're going to run the test here and we're going to separately run it in Russia and keep track separately because it might be different order?
I think things will be better in the future, but usually we run them in one market now. So we'll run a test. Usually in US, UK, or Germany. Those are the 3 big sites for eBay. And if it's successful in one market, then we'll oftentimes test it out in the other markets, and then we'll roll it out globally. So we don't test in the small sites, Italy, Spain, Poland. There's not enough traffic. You have to run, like in Australia, you have to run tests for a long time to get statistically significant results.
Are you going to use examples of the kind of tests you do?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So let's see. I'll tell you one right now on this slide. I guess I should just ask, but we didn't do a good job with compound compounding and decompounding words, a lot of space synonyms. And it's unbelievable how many space synonyms there are. If you try to think of it, you can't always think of them right off the bat. But words like jet ski happen a lot. Jet skis either together or apart. But there's tens of thousands of those. And in Germany, it's really common because you get very long words and you can break them basically arbitrarily. So you can put them together or not. And so we ran that test and it was really positive in Germany. It was positive. We rolled it out everywhere. It was positive in the U.S. too, not as much as Germany. But it was a huge win in Germany because it happens so often and people don't even mundane things. The query I was using a lot when I was debugging was granite paving stones. It's granite. I don't speak German. Granite Plasterstein. And you can have granite, plaster, and stein all together, or granite plasterstein, or granite plaster. And they all happen. So there's three tokens A, B, C. So you get A, B, C together, and you get A, B together, and C separately. You get A and then B, C together, and then you get them all separate. And they all, and I go through and I do the search all the different ways, and you have inventory for all.
Each wins us to ignore the spaces.
Yeah. Yep. So when somebody types in one, we would just do an expansion of the other forms. And that happens a lot. And actually, I got a slide. I'm going to get there in a minute. There's some more slides about that. There's some things that are simple that we don't do automatically. And I'll tell you why. Like plurals, we don't automatically stem plurals or expand into plural forms. And there's a reason why. I'll show you.
So query rewrite should be over query, convert to a new query in a few steps.
Yeah. Usually, to start with, so long ago we didn't do much. We had just a few editorial expansions. And then we started mining. We started doing simple things first, and then progressively it's gotten a little more complicated. But yeah, the queries that get run now are quite large compared to what, the user might have typed in only 2 or 3 tokens. The query that gets run is oftentimes quite complicated. So we've already talked about metrics, right? And this is the kind of variation we get. This would be the 0 line, I think the number off, but this is the kind of swing you get. So we run paired controls. So the red and yellow are the 2 controls. And we run 2 controls, and we just take the average of the 2 controls and we call that 0. That's how we get a baseline. And then we compare the treatment, which is the blue line against that. But a lot of times you have quite a bit of variation. So we have to run the experiments for a while if we want statistically significant results. And it's hard to measure in effect if it's too small. It's really hard for us to measure anything below a half a point. We can half a point, maybe 0.4, 0.3, 0.2. We don't have the statistical power to measure those. And a lot of times, that's what you're doing. You're not running an experiment that's going to change things by 10%. If you could have done that, you'd retired already. Let's see. So I want to talk now I'm going to switch more to search. So it used to be that people were doing document analysis. You do term frequency, inverse document frequency. People were doing information retrieval. You'd use the Trek data sets to analyze how good your algorithms were doing, but it was mostly document based. And that's what search was. That's what information retrieval was. And you can't build a good search engine now without behavioral data. A couple of years ago, I heard somebody from Yandex speaking at SIGA. He's like, yeah, we've got the Russian market because we have all the Russian users, so we have all the Russian behavioral data. So Yandex is beating Google in Russia, but it's because they know that when his example was, when you search for refrigerator in Belarus, we should show parts. We show refrigerator parts. When you search for refrigerator in Moscow, we show refrigerators. That's because people in Moscow can afford to buy refrigerators. Some other parts of the country they can't. But you need the behavioral data, and that's where all the related searches come from. And all this optimization, it's all based on behavioral log file data, what people are clicking, buying. Yeah.
So does the socioeconomic, right now IP addresses can very easily be connected to where the query is actually coming from. So in your search, you actually also now include, the searches from San Jose versus, San Joaquin Valley. It's a different, probably they're looking for different things even though or the keyword is the same.
Yeah, we don't do that now. The world gets more sophisticated all the time. So there's a lot of context and personalization that we don't use right now, and I think most people don't. Geography is one of them for us. I think you get different results in Google now when you search for different locations. But Google's got a lot of people's fingers. It's very good research team. Because it takes effort it takes effort to do all these things. And there's not you can't just install Lucene for your big commercial company and then you automatically get all of the behavioral data mining. It's not part of the package.
I think a huge difference between like search on Google and search in eBay is in Google, the critical thing is links.
Right.
Whereas in eBay, I don't think you have links, do you?
Yeah. No, we don't. And it's a very different problem actually. There's a couple. It's a good observation. So there's a couple of really big differences. So one is, I always think it's fun. I don't do it very often, but it's not that fun. So I don't do it very often. But people think that Google's doing something kind of fuzzy and fancy sometimes, but as often as not, it's just a literal keyword search. If you bang your keyboard and hit search, you'll get a bunch of results, and you'll think, oh, they've dropped some terms, they've done something fancy. But if you go look at those documents, they've got your terms in them. As often as not, if you just bang on your keyboard, it brings up log files, and I don't know who puts these log files out and why they make them publicly available, but you'll get files that are huge that have just random characters. As far as I can tell, they have random characters in it, and they have ASPFG, in them, and whatever else you bang on the keyboard, which is kind of funny, but they're there. So, but there's a huge corpus, so there's billions of documents on the public internet. So you always get something. You never get, what we call eBay null and low search results. Where if you're at a commercial company like eBay, you have a much smaller corpus. Right? We have 300 or 400 million documents on the site usually, and so it's a much smaller corpus, and you're much more likely to get small result sets. And that's never a good thing when this user searches for something. You say, oh, sorry, we don't have anything. Go somewhere else.
Related question is, do you take into account the ethnicity of the person posting the query?
No, we don't now. So we don't do much. We do some personalization, but not much in search right now. So anyways, you're more likely to get null and low queries. And the other big thing for all e-commerce sites is people don't want just a relevance sort. Actually, relevance sort, if you're in the search business, it's worth to do relevance, right? But to some extent, there's a whole bunch of problems you don't have to deal with. You just have to show the 10 best documents or the 100 best documents. In e-commerce, people switch the sort. Oftentimes as they get closer to a purchase and they want to sort by price. So imagine to yourself what happens if you do a query, let's say I was on Google, I do a query and Google says, oh, we found 1 billion documents for you. And you're like, awesome. And you're looking at the 10 best ones and what if you could switch that to the last time the document was edited, right? On Google you can't, but it would be random. It would be random, right? And if you could switch it, if you're an e-commerce site and you search for price, you change the sort to price low to high, it's almost the worst of all possible worlds. All the crap floats to the top. So all the stuff that's 99 cents, little springy things and plastic badge holders, all that stuff floats to the top, and that's not what people are looking for. So you can't, so if somebody does a query on eBay and we're showing the best matches, we call relevance sorting, okay, then it's pretty good. It's like, it looks pretty relevant, it's good inventory, then it switches price low to high. And if they've narrowed their result set down so that they've got a small set of documents, maybe they're looking for a car, there's 50 of them, that's pretty good. You sort by price and it's good. But if you had a big query, you search for dress and then you switch to price sort, it's kind of a mess. And sometimes people will put in floor prices to cut out the accessories, or they'll sort price. You see people actually in eBay, it's an e-commerce site, sorting on price high to low. And you might wonder yourself, well, why would somebody want to sort price high to low? I always want people come to eBay to get a good deal in general. And some users do it just to get rid of accessories. So, yeah. I mean, if you're a seller, you kind of want to know you look at completed items, you can look at sold inventory. You want to find the cheapest price for something comparable to what you're selling that's sold. Because if you list something too high, it won't sell. It'll sit there. People So deterministic sorts are a big deal. So Amazon right now won't let you do a price sort until you narrow it down to a category. So if you search for something on Amazon, price sort isn't an option until you pick the category, because they want you to get to a smaller result set before you sort by price. I don't know if that's not a great solution.
You gave an example of airplanes, correct? I mean, is there, or like on Amazon when you search, many a times it comes up with, did you mean
Right.
X and such?
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen that kind of may I add sophistication to eBay searches, but is that something that you are looking into? Or?
Yeah, we have it. We said, did you mean also it's for spell check?
Yes.
For spell corrections. And
Yes.
then we have related searches also.
Correct.
So one of the related searches for airplanes is real airplanes. Funny. It was. It's probably not anymore now, but it was before. Yeah, related searches are incredibly valuable. They're one of the higher click-through elements on the page. They're right below the search box, but a lot of times people, it's hard. If I typed a query and I didn't get the results I wanted, what am I supposed to do next?
Exactly.
Well, I'm a regular user. I'm not a search engine expert. I don't know what I should do next. So it's, related searches are helpful. So we've done some work to get better coverage of related searches, because my conjecture would be a related search for the query iPod isn't nearly as useful as I search for cool solar panel repair, and I got nothing. I don't know what to do, but now I have no related searches because it's a tail query and there's so little behavioral data. So we do token dropping and mutual information, trying to decide which tokens are most relevant, trying to give people better related searches further out the tail, because those are the people that need help. They search for something, they didn't find it, and they don't know what to do next.
Yeah,
People that are searching for iPhone, they already know that they can search for iPhone 5 or iPhone 6.
I've seen it get about Google, probably years of Google worries about spam. I guess you're no problem whatsoever with spam, is that right?
Actually, I'm the engineering director for two teams, search, recall, and spam.
Oh, really? You
Yes.
have spam on eBay?
Yeah, people, I'll give you you'll like this one. So let's say you may rank low, and there's different things people do to optimize bad search engine optimization for relevance versus, we have deterministic search. So you can list your item for $1 million with best offer, we have best offer feature. So then you show up first in price, title low. You can use the multi-variation listings in some of the bags with your other color choices for your clothes or sweatshirts, and then you list a bag at 99 cents and you show up first in price, low to high. You continually can have one item that you leave on the site for a long time for best match relevance, but you can have another item that you just end all the time when you start. So you show up first in time newly listed and time newly listed. And then people sell signs like Johnson family parking only. No parking, Johnson family only. And they'll get a dictionary of all the last names in the world, and they'll list 200,000 items, right? They'll use an image program to generate pictures of the signs, and they'll list. Some of these people have 500,000 items on the site. Well, it just clutters everything up. What they're selling is a custom no parking sign. You can put any string in there. So the kind of these dictionary attacks. It's just spam. So, and duplicate inventory, they'll list the same thing multiple times. So that when I search for it, I see a whole page of inventory, and I can buy any of those things, and you're selling all of them. So, yes, so we do have spam. That's a newer effort from the company. We didn't used to have as much spam as we have. I guess we've had spam where the company's getting better. Actually, it's getting cleaner all the time. So we're doing more to combat it now.
The TF-IDF days was issues about summer, same word like
Over and over again.
handbag. Is that an issue for you?
No, it was a few years ago. We had a bug in one of our relevance profiles at one point. People realized that if you put the same word multiple times in the title, it would rank higher. It was mostly a bug, though. It didn't last very long. People figured out that there was a number that was really popular. So we have, I think it was 5. So you can see items like 5. I think it was the iPhone. Maybe it was 4.
So now, in addition to buying tangible goods, you can now buy services on eBay.
Right.
Like, and how do you actually rank services now?
There's not much for services on the site. We've
I
gone back and forth with how much we want to do. We don't really do too much in digital goods and services. You can buy digital stuff, but we've never gone to say like selling music.
No, I meant, for example, I have a cracked Galaxy S3, and I search for repair
Right.
Galaxy S3 screen, and
Right.
certainly there are people whom you ship phones
Right.
and they repair it and send it back to you.
There's not a lot of that we don't optimize. At one point, we were going to go into that business in a bigger way, right? You could go in and it would be reasonable for a company like eBay or Amazon to compete with Angie's List, right? Because they're bigger companies, they got a lot of traffic. It's kind of a different market. We never have. It's more like Yelp, Yelp, because people there are rated based on reviews. It's a little different business. So we have it, some, but not. It's not a big deal. Let's see. So I'm going to go through a few more of these things. What's the time right now?
We can combine the discussion.
Oh, I don't want to take too much. So we collect. I'm going to skip through this one real fast. We collect a lot of data, and we have to do clusters now. And when we built our first city cluster, I think it was 1,000 machines. I think it cost us $40 million, and we recouped our investment in 9 months through relevance improvements on the site. It was a lot of money. It was a lot of money at the time, but you could recoup it pretty quickly. If you have a significantly sized business, differences of 0.5% or 1% add up pretty fast. So when people come to the site, the example I use is if you go to the grocery store, they do market basket analysis. They keep your they want you to sign up for their loyalty club. They keep track of what you buy. They resell that to other people. They know the people that buy this also buy that. And it's good for their business. That's why they do it. But in the e-commerce world, it's like you pulled into the parking lot for the grocery store and we know you've arrived. We assigned you a tracking ID. We give you a GUID. And you walk through the door and we know which door you walk through, what side of the parking lot you walk through. You walk down the row and you pick up a can of soup and you put it back. And you pick up another can and you put it in your cart. And we say, oh, this guy looked at the can of soup and you put it back and you pick this other can of soup. Let's do an analysis and find out all the things that are different between those kinds of soups, right? And say, oh, this one you put back, it's got partially hydrogenated fat in it, and the one you kept doesn't have partially hydrogenated fat. And if people do that a lot, you can say, hey, people don't like partially hydrogenated fat. We should get rid of that everywhere. So, and you have the path that they walk down the store and when they turn the aisle and how long they lingered. I mean, it all gets collected. So it's kind of amazing. It's a treasure trove of data. So there's a lot that can be done with it. We're not doing everything that we could, but we're doing quite a bit. But all of it takes some thought and some effort. Let's see. So the trends have been, moving from editorial to machine learning, small data sets to big data sets, few sources to many different sources, and context from aggregate. It's easier to aggregating things to a lot more detailed context. And generally, you don't see a lot of it today in search, but I'm really enthusiastic about in-session context. So I searched for basketball on eBay, and what we mostly show you is shoes, right? And why do we show you shoes? That's what people buy. Yeah, people buy basketball shoes all the time. In fact, people have closets full of basketball shoes. Who can't figure it out? And they're expensive too. I think they're expensive. People buy a lot of shoes. So the predominant intent when people buy basketball is they ultimately buy basketball shoes. But some people want to buy basketball. So if we show a whole page of shoes and like 3 basketballs, it makes it more difficult to buy a basketball. And you want to buy a basketball. So if I'm going to pick on you, so now I searched for basketball and I got shoes. But I wanted to buy a basketball. Now what should I do? What would you do? Switch to a different site. Yes, that happened. Absolutely it does.
Real basketball.
Real basketball. No, for basketballs, they type basketball balls. Or basketball ball. Again, it's like, oh, and then it's like, oh, basketball ball. Like you really wanted basketball, and then you're showing basketball. But not everybody knows to do that. So And most of the sellers put the word ball in the title. Or it's the balls category. But anyways, yeah, so we mix stuff. So really for the query basketball, items are mixed based on the histogram of the categories that you're purchasing. So, 90% of the purchasers are shoes, about 90% of the inventory is shoes, and 10% is balls, about 10% of the items on the page are balls. And in aggregate, it works out well, but after I did the search, I looked at the first page, I clicked on the 3 balls that were on the first page, and I skipped all 97 of the shoes. Then I went to the second page, what do you suppose we do? We show you 97 more shoes and 3 more balls, right? Because that's the aggregate distribution of purchases. We don't use the click data you just gave us.
How much does
And
the result change?
most sites don't.
How much does the result change depending on who's logging in? I mean, I keep track of who I am when I log on. I log with my username, let's say, or
Yeah. We do some personalization. You'll see more and more personalization in the future. There's two things: personalization and context, session context. So for session context, we don't need to know who you are. We just need to know what you just did. And I'm actually I'm more enthusiastic about context than I'm about personalization. Because if I come to the site and I buy, a kid's book for my niece, I don't want to come back to the site always and see kids' books because my kids are older. Whereas if the context is pretty immediate. I did something, and if I searched for some kind of book and I clicked on a book that was maybe good for a 3 to 5-year-old, that's some pretty immediately relevant information. But there's both of those, and they're very related from the implementation standpoint.
That's
There's a lot
an
of
interesting
difference.
point though, because we had a talk some time ago from Netflix, and same sorts of questions came up, right? In terms of the recommendations and so on.
Right.
They have even bigger problem because until recently they didn't distinguish
They
between
didn't distinguish.
different people in the household.
Yeah.
But what you just now said brings up the question of if some visitor came and they
Right.
watched this kid movie
Yeah.
and maybe they hung around for a couple of days, they still seem to get affected by that, at least the way they
Right.
keep track of what
Yeah.
things were viewed.
Yeah, so we don't do too much there, and I think most sites don't, I think, do too much with personalization. Merchandising for sure, like when you come to the site, you're going to see recommendations based on what you search for in the past and related items, which is more of a merchandising function, but in the actual search results, most sites don't change them too much. But I think you're going to see more of that in the future.
So why don't we, if they click on just the basketball, not the shoes, start showing the basketball, why do we ignore that? We see
Oh.
don't do what they buy.
It's just the resources. I mean, there's a list of things that we could, we have a list of things longer than our arm that we wanted to do. And it's like the same thing you guys all have to do, right? It's like there's a lot of things you love to do, and you have to prioritize and just work down the list. So, and if you're Google and you're a big search outfit, you got more people, you need more of them. If you're a small company, if you've got a smaller applied research group or data mining group for search, then maybe only do a few, or you end up doing things like you expand your null and low by doing an or instead of an and. That's not a great solution, but it only took you a day to implement. So, if you want to keep track of personalization and session context, you have to collect the data for personalization. For context, you've got to log in the cookies probably what people are doing, and then you have to have a real-time system to fetch that stuff really quickly. So there's both engineering and science work that needs to be done. Let's see. So now I'm going to get the query rewrite. So eBay is e-commerce sites and eBay are different because people come, they have an intent. Sometimes they're doing research, but generally speaking, they want to buy something. They're in the market to buy something. And the thing that I really like about eBay is I'm not running a site for one thing, but making my money on something else, right? So a lot of sites, Twitter is, people are tweeting with each other, but they're maybe making money on advertising, right? So you're making your money by kind of drawing people away from their main intent and sending them off somewhere else. Or I'm a search engine and I'm showing you search results, but I'm making money by advertising. So eBay, the buyers come to buy stuff. So if they spend money, that's that's a good proxy for happiness. They came to buy something. If they found it, they bought it. The sellers, of course, like to sell things. That's the business. They're in the business of selling things, and then we take a cut. So we take a percentage. So the more things, the more dollars that trade hands, the more money we make. So everybody's kind of well aligned. So if we do an experiment and optimize for revenue, oftentimes we'll get some sellers that will complain. You just cannibalize my business. You guys are bozos. You have a new relevance algorithm, and I don't show up as high anymore, and now I don't make as much money as I used to. And how could you be such an idiot? But we tested it before we rolled it out, and in aggregate, sellers sell more stuff. It's just, the goodness and badness aren't always evenly distributed. Maybe somebody was lucky and they were kind of gaming the relevance system, and we come out with a new release they don't do as well. But in aggregate, we only roll out things that are positive for everybody. So sellers sell more, buyers buy more, you get more of a cut. Let's see. So I like to ask questions, so I was going to do another test. So I'm doing query rewrites. So you'll do a query for iPod, and we'll show you items that have iPod in the title, and then we'll have to decide, well, should we show iPods also? Probably we should show iPods. So we'll expand, you'll say iPod or iPods or maybe some other variations, and red or reds, or, we'll expand terms in that query. So these are terms on the left, the keys, and then the possible expansions. So I want you to look through this and decide whether you think that's a good expansion or a bad expansion. So if somebody typed in a query with diaries in it, should I also bring back items that have the other terms and the term diary? If the query had...
So if you think this is an or, then, so the diaries or diaries.
Should I or these two? Yeah. Should I add the second term with an or clause to the search? So people thought about it for a minute? You can think about it for a minute first. So the thing is, we don't do this as a human judgment task. Some things we do as human judgment tasks. We crowdsource human judgment. Without the behavioral data, it's almost impossible to figure out whether these things are good or not. My all-time favorite is fishing sticker, and I'll show you why. So diaries, bad expansion. In general, if you don't have any other context, because the top query is vampire diaries, right? People aren't really looking for diaries, they're looking for the movie or the book. Baggies to baggy is actually, baggies is a model of shorts for Patagonia. Cranberries is a band. Jogging to jog, that's fine. Fishing sticker to fish sticker. Fish stickers, that's my all-time favorite. So if I search for fish stickers, I have a truck with a gun rack in it, and I got a picture of a walleye in the back window. Right? That's a fish sticker. Wait, no, that's a fishing sticker. And if I want a fish sticker, I'm a suburban mom, and I want to put Nemo on my kid's wall, right? Like it's different and that's not a hard and fast rule, obviously, but it's kind of a different intent. Like some people want, it's guys that want a sticker for the truck versus people who want animated characters to put on their kids' room walls. And we have both, so we don't expand those. There's some other examples.
So how do you decide whether to expand? You just literally do this for every word and decide?
Yeah, we do. So we run these gigantic Hadoop jobs. We run through all the queries and we say, the person typed food. What's the, did they typed diaries. And if we do an expansion to diary, then we can look through all the items. And some of the items have diary, some have diaries and diary, and some have just diaries. And we can just look and see which ones they click on and which ones they buy. So it's all there. But you have to do it on a mass scale. And of course we don't do it for all the tail queries and everything. We go pretty deep. Because the other thing that e-commerce has done for commerce is it's same with Netflix. You can have a long tail, right? You can stock everything. So Walmart's probably got 100,000 SKUs in the store. But on eBay, we've got a few 100 million items, and they're not all unique. A lot of them are the same inventory. But there's a lot you can get anything. So it's always fun to go query, go look for just odd things. But you can buy, I haven't looked for a long time now, but you can buy totem poles, like real totem poles, like the ones that are 30 feet tall that are carved out of trees. So we'll take a query like this in Germany. This is the space symbolic version here. So somebody will search for Pilslam, which is a mushroom plant, and there are a bunch of these on the site. And you'll search for what they queried for, and then there's a couple of the compound versions, and that's the query we'll run. Actually, the queries we run on the site are there are a couple of orders of magnitude bigger than that in general.
Common really is important in this case.
Yeah, it's prefix condition, right? Or Pilsman or phrase of the others. And then we'll do phrase a lot of times to enforce that the two terms show up in the document adjacent to each other in that order. And that makes a big difference for queries like Apple TV. You don't want to bring back documents that have TV and then Apple somewhere else. You really want to bring back documents that have Apple TV together. And so we did an experiment on that a while back last year, and that was significant for some of the queries like Apple TV. Also, it worked well for one of my favorite example stories is Dallas Season 3, so the TV show Dallas. So people buy these box sets of the DVDs, and there's always Dallas on the site. If you go look, there's usually 20 different people that are selling Dallas, more than that actually, Dallas DVDs of the TV show. They search for Dallas Season 3. It turns out that almost all the Dallas seasons, I think, except for one, are a 3-disc set. So Dallas Season 4 is a 3-disc set, and oftentimes the titles say Dallas Season 4, 3-disc set, Dallas Season 5, 3-disc set, Dallas Season 6, 3-disc set. So you search for Dallas Season 3. If we just do an and of the terms, you get back all the Dallas seasons, because they're all 3-disc sets. So we phrase Season 3 for that query, so you get just Dallas Season 3. The problem is, if we do that, sometimes people put words in between for valid reasons, and you'll lose some of the inventory. So when we focus on precision, you'll lose some of the inventory. Also, we'll cut out, for Dallas, if Season 3 like that, we'll give it 10 items, it'll be Dallas Season 3, that's perfect, exactly what you wanted. And then we'll probably cut 2 or 3 out that, it had Dallas Season Roman numeral 3 and then the number 3 or something like that. Let's see. So that's what we're doing for query rewrites. And it's all mined for behavioral data. So we're doing stemming, spelling, stemming conditions, synonyms, things like boat carpet and marine carpet, space, decompounding, compounding. People have item specifics on eBay items, so color equals blue, brand equals apple. Acronyms, categories. And then term removal actually ends up being kind of a big deal too, because if people go to one site and they grab a product title and they go paste it on another site, it almost never works, because different sites have different terms. So if you leave in things like daily deal, it doesn't work. Let's see. So we have a category on eBay for stamps for Bermuda. And before you used to search for Bermuda stamps, and we would bring all the items that had Bermuda and stamps in the document. And we were doing expansions from stamps to stamp and other variations, but we weren't expanding to the category. This was quite a few years ago. And then we started expanding to the category, and then we just bring back all the stuff in the stamps category. So that's pretty obvious. Not all categories are is defined in detail is for that query. For context, we don't stem automatically. And the reason we don't stem automatically is it's not always applicable. So when I search for, my favorite here is cowboys hats and cowboy hats. So if I search for a cowboy's hat, I'm looking for a football hat, like a ball cap with the Dallas Cowboys on it. And if I search for cowboy hats, I'm looking for Western hats. And if I stem those and I do cowboy or cowboys and hat or hats, I just hit all the wrong stuff. And that happens a lot. It happens for van too. So if somebody comes to the site and searches for vans, what should I show them? You guys want to guess?
Shoes.
Shoes. Of course, everybody buys shoes. A lot of shoes. So I should show them shoes.
Always some shoes, right?
Yeah, show them shoes for everywhere. Yeah. But we do sell vans too. I mean, we sell real vans under motor, but not as many as shoes. So when you search for van, we show you the van. Like the motor vehicle, we show you for vans, we show you shoes. But sometimes it makes sense, and you could be more. You could do more work to mine out which of those queries you should and shouldn't do before. But in general, we just don't do it across the board. You get poor results. So we learn the expansions for plurals also.
So in the slide before, you mentioned all these different ways of rewriting the queries, right? Based on synonyms and acronyms and so on.
Yeah.
So do you learn and associate some weights to those terms when you actually rewrite a query?
We learn them. We have weights internally, but they don't make it all the way through our system. We should do more of that. There's a lot of things that you can do. I'm talking now mostly about things we've done in the past, which are token expansions. And I'm talking a lot today about what we do offline in data mining. There's things you can do online also. So some queries aren't frequent enough that you don't see foo. Maybe you don't see foobar often enough. You see foo a lot, maybe you see bar a lot, but you don't see foobar a lot. So you can't do an offline optimization for it. But now the query foobar comes online. Actually, a good example for that is US kids. So what do you think we should show for the query US kids?
KIDS.
KIDS, yeah. It's a golf brand. Who would have thought? I would never guess it was a golf. It's a golf brand. US Kids is a golf brand. People are looking for drivers and putters, and yeah. So, and if we don't see that query a lot, we see US a lot. So we have a whole bunch of expansions for US. There's a whole bunch of categories where the category name is US. So we expanded all, and of course we have a whole bunch of expansions for kids. But then when the query US Kids comes, we actually shouldn't really expand into any of those things because it's brand new golf. We should expand into golf. And so another good example is, let's say I had an expansion from dog to canine. So when somebody does the query hot dog, should I make it hot canine? It doesn't really make any sense. So you could do online, you could do sort of normalize mutual information between terms and look at price and category distributions for the potential expansions you have and decide which ones are most applicable on the fly. Good question. So yeah, anyways, so I think query rewrites are a pretty interesting area. There's a lot going on. I think most people, how many of you thought before this talk that query rewriting was interesting at all? Oh, most of you, good. Most people think about it, they just think about ranking. So everything is a ranking problem. Actually, and if all of the sorts in eBay were relevance-based, then recall you can throw your net wide and bring more stuff back and let the ranker sort it out.
It sounds like you have huge numbers of special bases. So you have massive lists of what to do with US Kid, what to do with.
Yeah, these asset files are like 50
gigabytes
gigabytes or something like that. Yeah, they're huge.
You just case by many cases.
Yeah, everything runs in parallel. We just go through them all. Yeah, if you do something on eBay, we don't throw it away. So, let's see, and then there's, I was just talking about context a little bit. So things like an acronym like ATC, actually, it could be used for all three of these things. So it depends on what you've done previously, whether you want to, or what other terms are in the query, whether you want to look into what their hobbies, art, or business industrials. And then when we first started doing things, they were bi-directional, and that didn't last a long time. We'd say iPod to iPods and iPod, we'd make sets of synonyms. And what you find is a lot of these things are directional. So you maybe want to expand old to antique, but not antique to old. Or yoga toes next to yogi toes, but you wouldn't want to expand yogi toes to all yoga mats. Or maybe a better example is blue and teal. Teal might be teal's bluish green. It might be, it's specific. So if somebody searched for blue dress, maybe show me teal dresses is good. But if somebody searched for teal dress, then they know what they're looking for, right? They want a specific shade of blue, and if you just show them all blue dresses, they're going to think you're Indian. Specificity and directionality. And then acronyms, there's sort of three good. I was going to talk briefly about acronyms. It's kind of a niche area, but there's three good ways to do it. The first letters of the words is one of the algorithms. Another algorithm that actually is pretty effective is this Schwartz-Albriti match algorithm. A lot of times people, when they have acronyms, enough items on the site will have the expanded version with the acronym maybe in parentheses afterwards. You have enough data to mine these things. You take PSP, you take the first letter, or you take the last letter, you work back, and you just pick them as you get them. That works pretty well. And there's one other, there's like three of them. We blended the three of them together. They mined acronyms. This was compounding and decompounding. If you search for acid washed with the words compounded on the US site, you used to get 10 results. Afterwards, we printed out both versions. You get 2,000. It's a huge difference. In one of them, of course, is the way that the majority of people do it. And that's big. That was, like I mentioned before, that was big in Jones. People do that all the time. I'm going to skip through this because I talked about it a little bit, but and then when I've done this before, sometimes people say, well, but how do you do all these things? You just told us all, it gave us a whole bunch of examples, but you didn't actually tell me what are the algorithms. So I wanted to go through a few specific examples. So a lot of these things you can walk through sessions and look for keywords. So if somebody searched for foo-bar, then the next query was foo-baz. They've replaced bar with baz. So that's a signal that bar and baz may or may not be good expansions. They might be good. They might be good expansions. And then if they do the query foo-bar, and then there's some items that have bar and baz in the title. A lot of times sellers will put misspellings in their titles. I can't think of a good example off the top of my head right now. But the sellers will, if there's a common misspelling, a lot of times they'll put it in their title. They'll have the right spelling and then maybe parentheses have the wrong spelling. So if we see things together in the title, that's another indication that maybe they go together. And then when people do a query, we can see which items they click on. So if the query was jet ski and some of the items have jet ski personal watercraft in the title, and they click on a lot of items that have personal watercraft, that's another indication. So that's mining sort of synonym or keyword expansions. You can do the same thing for categories. If I've got a bunch of queries, I've got a bunch of categories for this query, what's the distribution of clicks and purchases? Then I can figure out what are the dominant categories. So the dominant category is an important concept in eBay for what your main query intent is. And then for related searches, people do the same thing. It's like we did for synonyms, queries that co-occur in the same session. So you look at your sessions, queries that co-occur. The other common thing to do for related searches is to build a bipartite graph, and you have queries in one column and items in the other column. So if I did a query and I clicked on an item, and somebody else did a different query and clicked on the same item, those two queries are probably related, right? People were clicking on items if they had some similar intent. Let's see. So that was just kind of an example. I think I'm going to skip through this. I think, what time is it now? It's got to be an hour. Yeah. So this is the last slide, actually. I talked about null and low a little bit before. So people sometimes go to other sites. So I could go to, I think I went to Walmart for this one. Look for trampolines at Walmart. Just grab the entire title and came to eBay and pasted it in the search box. That's not an uncommon use case. and it was Skywalker trampoline, bazooka volleyball net accessory. And we have one with exactly that title from Toys R Us. But now we have two more where instead of using the word accessory, they've used the word attachment, and otherwise they would have matched. So now we do this null expansion where we do some token dropping. It's actually kind of hard to do token dropping. What we do is we do a and in the terms. So we do a kind of a fuzzy and where we say 59% of the terms have to show up in the document in order for us to show it. And that works pretty well. And when we do these experiments, the funny thing here is, we'll say at the top of the page, 1 result or maybe 0 results, and we'll say more items related. And we get complaints for the more items related because people say, I searched for a bright orange Ainsley teacup and you gave me a blue Ainsley teacup. You guys are total idiots. Because people don't read any of the messaging on the page. When we go to the user experience lab, what we see is people do the search and then they just start scrolling and they look at the pictures. And they don't even know that we've done an expansion. So these experiments were big wins. People don't know what you've done. They just expect you nowadays in search. They just expect that the search engine should read their mind and show them relevant stuff, and they just scroll and find things. And so they don't read the messages. So when some of the savvier sellers complain that they didn't get exactly what they typed, if you read the bulletin boards, usually people will complain. People love to complain online. They'll complain, and then there'll be a bunch more complaints, and then one of the users will say, "Yeah, but did you guys look at the page? It says more related inventory. They only had 3 items that were an exact match. Then after that, they're giving you some sort of fuzzy match." And then people say, "Well, they should have a better fuzzy match." But anyways, that works really well. So, and it's way better than, you can't always guess which terms to drop. So if you do all combinations, it's better.
What are examples of A/B tests where you have one on each side? Can you give examples of those?
Well, like this we tested.
Okay, so
right?
what are some kind of tests?
So we came up with actually a whole bunch of schemes for doing result recovery. That we should drop 1 term, we should drop 2 terms. If somebody typed in 10 terms, we should drop 4 terms, we should keep 6 terms. So we'll do an experiment on the site where the control is what's in production now. People will say 1 item, and they only see the 1 item. And then the other group will see the new algorithm. And a lot of times we'll have 2 or 3 different algorithms that we'll test. So does that make sense?
Yes.
So we'll take 10% of the traffic, and 5% will get, actually, we'll run paired controls. So 2.5% will get 1 control, 2.5% will get another control, so we can see the variation, just the random variation. We didn't even change anything. And then 5% will get this null and low treatment.
The winners would solve the most.
Right. Yep. Yeah. But we do a lot of negative. I mean, we don't try to do negative tests, but I mean, we do a lot of tests that end up being in the noise. Sometimes we launch them. So sometimes they're good engineering improvements, or we think they're good for user experience. So we'll say, we're going to test this, but it's a launch it neutral candidate. But if it's not revenue positive, we're still going to launch it. It's possible. It's more of a political question. Would we launch a test a negative test? Maybe, but then you're paying to make the site better. So I have spam also. So if I get rid of duplicate inventory, a lot of times if you get rid of spam, you make less money. So then the question is, how much are we willing to pay to clean the site up?
So, do you also look at image matching? For example, if I had to look at the results, and then many times I would go in and say, hey, this image is what I was really looking for.
Yeah. We have.
Okay.
It's been on and off the site a couple times over the last few years.
Okay.
I really like it. It's not,
because given 70% of humans are visual.
Yeah. So I do a lot of that for, we're doing a lot of image similarity right now for duplicate detection.
Mm-hmm.
People list the same item over and over again. And this clogs up the site. And then they're crafty, so they start putting the same item. They're selling clothes and they have 3 mannequins, so they'll put the jacket on one mannequin and the picture, and another manic can take a picture, and another manic can take a picture, and rotate it a couple times, and then list 10 items, and add fake UPCs at the end of the titles or something like that. So we're working on getting to those. So we can't just do exact image match. We have to do similar. But what you're talking about is buying, browsing. It's like, hey, I found some items, show me more like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had that on the site in the past. It's actually amazingly good. That's been around. There was a site called Light.com that got bought by Amazon a couple of years ago. They did a nice job of simple image search. There's a site now called TinEye that does a nice job across the web. Yeah, I like it. We've had it on. It's been on eBay and off.
Yeah,
at
it's
various
been on
times.
and off. That's why
I think you'll see it again.
Okay.
I like it, and people love looking at pictures. And browsing is a great use case to support. And right now, eBay's if you go on the homepage, it's kind of like a Pinterest style. You can kind of infinite scroll, I think, or search. And the two aren't seamlessly blended, right? You like to be able to search and then move into browse and then move back to search and then do something in between. Like Amazon search is okay, but Amazon search isn't great. But most people don't search all the time. I don't search all the time on Amazon. I go to Amazon, I search once just to find something that's sort of close to what I want to buy. Say I want to buy a router. I search, I click the first router. All I'm doing is scrolling down the page so I can get to that. This router is number 37 in routers, and I click on that and I say, well, that's number 1. And then I buy that one. So then I go back to eBay and buy it. Because we don't have a deep product catalog in eBay right now either. So about a quarter of the inventory is productized, but a lot of stuff on eBay is not catalog inventory. Or it's not cataloged right now, which is nice from a shopping experience.
So I had a question.
Uh-huh.
You said you had a lot of data that could be used for data mining that's not being used.
Uh-huh.
And so my wife occasionally watches something called Antique Roadshow.
Oh, uh-huh.
And in the Antique Roadshow, they show a piece of art or something antique, and then they have some domain expert say,
Right.
I would insure it for this, it's worth
Yeah.
$50,000. And we have this thing called Watson. And I often thought that, gee, what would Watson say this thing is worth? Is it worth 30,000, 50,000? And for Watson to do that computation and hypothesis and so forth, and we were talking about it actually internally, and I said, it'd be nice if we had Watson on Antique Roadshow.
Right.
I said, well, we need the eBay data to do it.
You need all the data to do it.
And
Yeah.
you guys would have the ideal source for Watsonizing Antique Roadshow.
Yeah, I used to work at Excite.com, and I came with a company called Classifieds 2000, which is a classified engine that sat behind Infoseek, like a bunch of places. But we used to sell the price data that stuff was listed for. eBay could do the same thing. Kelly Blue Book, so
Right.
you could keep track of what prices.
So the data is available?
Yeah, and the nice thing about an auction site is, you get pretty good, you get real data out of auctions.
Right.
From a classified site, you know what the car was listed at. You don't actually know what it sold for. You just know that it came off the site. So the auctions, you know what. Yeah. The nice thing about eBay is we can make recommendations to the sellers when they list stuff, like what words they should use or what formats and prices. We see all the buyer activity, and then the transaction closes on the site. That's actually really nice. That's not something that you get all the time. So
you
if
do
you're on,
partnerships with other companies to make the data available?
we do sell it.
Okay.
But I think only aggregated though.
Okay.
So, yeah, because it's definitely valuable.
Any more questions?
Thanks for staying so long.
Okay, let's thank our speaker. Brian will stay here for lunch, so to join us.